Okay, good day everybody. Good to be back with you again for another Formula Sports video. Today we will be tackling the issue of racism in football. Particularly looking at the incident of alleged racism that took place at the Parc des Princes in Paris, where the assistant coach for Istanbul accused the fourth official, Sebastian Coltescu, of racism. So today we'll be looking at that incident, and as I said, just basically the whole, just basically racism in football, and just zooming in particular on this particular incident. So basically, Pierre Weber is alleging. Basically, what took place is that apparently the fourth official wanted the referee to discipline Pierre Weber because he was not comfortable with how Pierre Weber was behaving on the bench. And so he basically, in trying to point him out to get the referee's attention to the particular individual, said to the referee rather, use the term negru. So basically the referee is Romanian, Sebastian Coltescu, and he was speaking in Romanian and said to the referee in Romanian what translates in English to be the black one over there. Go and check who he is. The black one over there. It's not possible to act like that. And the term negru was used, and basically Pierre Weber heard the term. First of all, it must be important to point out that Pierre Weber thought that he heard Negro, but that's not actually the case. The official said Negru, right? Which is basically means the same thing, basically black. But obviously that was problematic at first, and a lot of people are on social media pointing out the difference of negru being a Romanian word and it not being a racial slur in Romania, and or it being socially acceptable to use that word in Romania. So the television footage caught him, saying that basically the black one over there, go and check who he is. And Pierre Weber took offense to that, and an argument ensued on the touchline between Istanbul's coaching staff and the fourth officials. Eventually the game had to be called off, and that was about in the 13th minute, and the game eventually took place the very next day, and they resumed the game at the 14th minute. So that's basically in a nutshell what happened, because both teams decided that they no longer wanted to be a part of the game, especially with that refereeing staff, in particular that fourth official. Both Istanbul and Paris Saint-Germain players decided to walk off, and I think that's amazing because so many times we have seen racist incidents, and we have never ever seen where both teams act in unison to say, look, we're not putting up with this. I don't know if it had something to do with the fact that it was a fourth official being accused of the racism, because, I've never seen that before. We have seen supporters, ultras, people in the stands, throwing bananas to a Dani Alves, or making monkey chants to a Mario Balotelli or a Kevin Prince Boateng. But we have never seen a fourth official being accused of racism. So But yeah, unprecedented incident, from a number of different perspectives, and it was good to see both sets of players from both teams deciding that they were gonna walk off, because normally it's one team who wants to walk off, one set of players who are offended by it, who can't stand it or whatever. But to see both sets of players, Arab players, Caucasian players, black players, basically acting in unison and saying that we're not going to tolerate this. That was a really, really good look and a real statement. And Pierre Weber said it. It's a real statement to the rest of the footballing world that racism will not be tolerated in the world of football. I mean, you always see instances where fans from one particular team, directing racial abuse at a particular player from another team. But no, and because I always opposed teams, like I've seen, like even Boateng, I remember one time, and the AC Milan team walked off the field and so forth and so forth. I don't think that that's the best way to go about it, because when you think about it, suppose a team was supposed to walk off the field, right? Basically, the team that the fans who were making the racist chants or the racist remarks support, that team will win the match, because the match would be cancelled, and automatically that team, the team that is on the field, would win the game by an automatic 3-0. So I never supported that sort of an reaction, but it's so profound because a precedent has been set by some of the biggest superstars in world football, like Neymar, like Kylian Mbappe. And Dembaba from Istanbul is basically a high-profile player himself. So now there has been an established code of conduct amongst players that if a player or anybody from any of the teams is facing any sort of a racism or alleged racism, we'll both walk off together in unity. That's a good look, because now fans are gonna think twice about making an attempt to racially abuse a player. And they do it. I don't know whether they're racist or not. I can't speak to their subjective intentions, but fans do it all the time to try and get under the skin of a player. Most of the times it's a player that they see as a threat. So they do it all the time. But no, it's not in their best interest to do it, because their team might very well walk off as well. And so that gets them nowhere. And, doing it to try and get under the skin and make players uncomfortable and make players play badly and so forth and so forth. We have seen that over the years, that particular racist abuse directed at black superstar footballers in the hope of unsettling them. So it's a very good look that this precedent has been set, and a code of conduct. Even though not written in stone, it's not official law or anything like that, but at least the precedent has been set. So players know that this can be an option. And I think it can be a massive, massive option or a massive reaction in terms of against the fight against racism in football, because fans are going to think twice now, because it's just not in their best interest to racially abuse a player on the opposing team, because it doesn't help them or their team either. So from that perspective, I loved what I saw, earlier in the week on Tuesday. That was just amazing to see both sets of, normally one set of players from the team with the individual who is the victim feel a way about it. To see both sets of players feeling a way about it and responding like that is good, especially the superstar talent out there, Mbappe, Neymar, Verratti, etc., etc. So that was really good. So basically, Contescue said what he said, And, Weber responded to say, why did you say Negro? And we have already established that he didn't actually say Negro, he said Negru. Slightly, obviously a different word in Romanian, but we basically meaning the same thing. The moral of the story is that the fourth official identified him as black or pointed him out as a black man and basically brought race into the equation in a professional environment. And that's the main issue. That is what the big fuss is all about. That's the issue at hand. And obviously, from my perspective, that is a no-no. You cannot be basically, identifying individuals by the color of their skin. That's not a good look. And that has, that historically has never been a good thing or a positive thing. But yeah, that's basically what happened. Demba Ba, probably the most high profile player on Istanbul's team as well, intervened and said, basically confronted the fourth official, saying, you never say this white guy, or in, to try and sound like, or to mimic Demba Ba. You never say this white guy. You say this guy. So why when you mention a black guy, you have to say this black guy? I'm sorry, I don't mean to make fun of Demba Ba, but I just found his accent funny. But that so in all seriousness, he said you never say this white guy, you say this guy. So why when you mention a black guy, you have to say this black guy? And that's a valid point. He basically Pierre Weber was being othered. He was being othered, and again, that's not a good look. But basically, Demba Ba, Pierre Weber, and other officials and players from Istanbul started to raise a big fuss about it. But so that again is the incident. Some people agree, some people disagree about whether or not the fourth official was being racist. But the fact of the matter is that identifying somebody by the color of their skin, can't be acceptable. Cannot be acceptable, and especially not in a professional environment. As I stated earlier, he was being othered. And my thing is that there are so many things you can identify somebody by. The color of their shirt, the color of their pants, the type of shirt, the type of pants, short pants, long pants, whatever the case is. Why do you have to identify him by his skin color? That's just, like there's so many other things, he's bald. Why he couldn't say that bald guy? But to identify him as by the color of his skin is just crazy to me. And obviously wrong. Obviously wrong. Big debate about whether, as the officials were basically saying, it is acceptable in Romania to call someone, Negru. And I am personally not accusing the fourth official of being prejudiced or being racist, but at the very least, he was extremely unprofessional. Extremely unprofessional. I mean, you can't speak to someone's subjective intentions to say that he's a racist, but it's from an objective standpoint, it's very fair to say that he was extremely unprofessional. Extremely unprofessional. And to the referee's point, where they come from, the word was not considered an offensive word. But as I say, it's just so context matters. Context matters, and it does matter. That's a very important point to stress. But as I said, man, it's at the very least extremely unprofessional. basically we have to break down this incident, in terms of what was said and how it was said. As I stated earlier, the fourth official said, let me see if I can find it right here. The black one over there, go and check who he is. The black one over there, it's not possible to act like that. Again, not a good look. It just doesn't sound right. Doesn't sound right at all. And the fact of the matter is that he had to have, how could you not, as the fourth official, know who Pierre Weber is in terms of being the assistant coach? I mean, it sounded like he didn't, but again, how could you not know? Like, you have to know. Basically, the assistant coach is always beside the main coach. Both of them will, I don't know, occasionally be standing around, shouting instructions, etc., etc. But my thing is that, even if you don't know who Pierre Weber is as an individual, a very high-profiled player, himself. But even if you don't know who he is, like, I just can't understand how you're a professional, you're a fourth official refereeing a game, and you don't know the coaching staff or the personnel on the bench, who they are. You don't know who the personnel on the bench are. I found that very strange in and of itself. That's the first thing. So you just, like, you have to know who the assistant coach of a game is that you're officiating, man. That's just a little bit strange to me. That he didn't know who this individual was, or that he was the assistant coach for the Istanbul team. Doesn't UEFA hand them a paper with the names and faces of the personnel? Who knows? But I really did find it strange that the fourth official did not know who the assistant coach was of one of the teams involved in the game. So that's just one major thing right there, man. Pierre Weber was reduced to the black one. Not even the black man, the black one. That's just classic. That's just a classic case of being othered right there. Not even the black man, the black one. He was reduced to the black one. This is an accomplished player who has played at a very high level, both for club and country, and has been reduced to merely the color of his skin. Accomplished player, assistant coach of one of the biggest clubs in Turkey, and has been basically reduced to the black one. It's just disrespectful. So that's the very first thing. It's just incredibly disrespectful. But historically, it has never been a good situation when someone of color has been identified by the color of their skin. White people are always saying, oh, well, I don't feel a way to be identified by white. But I just want to state for the purposes of this video that, I myself am a black man. But what Caucasians don't understand or don't get is that you being identified as white and me being identified as black are two different things. Depending on the context, it's not the same. It's not identical. And why it isn't is because the same consequences that follow a black man being identified as black is not the same consequences that follow a Caucasian being identified as a Caucasian. Historically, it has just, the historical context suggests that both instances are just two different instances. Big problem in America right now with police brutality. You always hear the police recordings coming out online. An unidentified black male. Yes, Caucasians will get will be, well, police would say, oh, an unidentified Caucasian or unidentified white male. But, it's a huge debate right now in America whether black people are crying wolf or indeed there is a problem of police brutality against minorities, in particular the black community. But however you may feel about it, the fact of the matter is that black people, generally speaking, all over the world, especially in places where there is a majority white population as well, do feel as though they are being or they are targeted by the police because of the color of their skin. Whether it is facts or whether you agree with that or not is an entirely separate issue. But the fact of the matter is, black people, especially, just for a case in point, America, do feel as though they are targeted because of the color of their skin. So again, you being identified as a white male or a white person and a black person being identified as a black person are just two different things. That's just facts, right? Especially along the lines of how black people feel about the situation. Just, again, historical context, going for an interview, automatically you're black. And probably that doesn't happen as much as it used to, but it still does. Wells Fargo CEO Charles Scharf said, if I'm not mistaken, earlier this year, he blamed the bank's lack of diversity on a, quote, very limited pool of black talent. It's those sort of a preconceived notions of black people that also make us feel a resentment to being identified by the color of our skin. I was looking at a story very recently also of a viral video involving housing discrimination in Jacksonville, Florida. And basically a biracial couple, black wife and white husband, basically alleging that they sought a valuation on their property and it was shockingly very low. And the black wife realized, because she's an attorney at law, and she realized what might potentially be the problem. And so she removed all pictures, all evidence of the fact that black people lived in this house, right? And went and got a second valuation done on the property. And basically, and just the Caucasian husband was there for that valuation, for the second valuation. The first valuation, both husband, wife, and son, biracial, mainly black son, was there. But because although the kid is biracial, the kid does look, from the photographs, the kid does appear. You wouldn't look at the child and think that it's a biracial child. So basically, just the Caucasian husband was there for the second valuation. No wife, no son, no trace of black people living in this home. And the second valuation came out, the property was valued at 40% more than what it was initially valued for. So those are the things that black people have an issue with, as it pertains to being identified solely on the basis of being black. We as a people do feel that anytime race is brought into the equation, automatically we just start to get uncomfortable, because historically that has never been a good thing. And even in America, a study that was done by the Brookings Institute on discrimination in housing, stated that after controlling for education, crime, walkability, homes in black neighborhoods are devalued by an average of 23%. Again, just on the basis of the fact, that these are black people living here. Similar communities, similar crime rates, just identical communities across black and white neighborhoods, education and so forth and so forth. Same education rate, same walkability, same crime rate and so forth and so forth. And the properties are valued at 23%, at an average of 23% lower than, a similar Caucasian community. Now, we don't know exactly the reason why that is the case, right? Because this is facts we're talking about here, right? So this is the opinion part of that whole issue right there. We don't know what is the reason for this 23% average devaluation. But, from an objective standpoint, what else could there be? Again, black communities, Caucasian communities. I'll let you be the judge of that. But despite or regardless of what you think of the matter, black people genuinely do believe that we face systemic and cultural discrimination based on just simply one thing, the color of our skin. So, again, identifying someone as black, historical context, never been good. Again, why the fourth official why he chose to say black guy? Why not, or the black one rather, not even black guy, the black one. Very disrespectful. But why couldn't he have used the color of his shirt, or the, if the person was wearing, if Weber was wearing a hoodie, a pullover, whatever the case is. But the black one, again, just rubs you the wrong way. Naysayers pointing to Micah Richards, who is a popular pundit on Sky Sports. What we black people refer to as the token Negro, when white people always point to a black individual or people who are naysayers of racism or discrimination. I always point to that one Negro who agrees, or one black person who agrees with their point. Basically he's saying that he would not have taken offense to being called what the black one, what Pierre Weber was labeled as. And basically, black people are not a monolith. I don't understand that argument. The fact of the matter is, a significant amount of black people would have an issue with that. So why are you pointing to the one black person who doesn't? A significant amount of people say that they're offended by it. And again, I'm not accusing Contescue of being a racist. I'm just saying it was at the very least extremely unprofessional to identify someone in your working environment as being the black one. So while I disagree with Micah Richards that he would not be offended by that, at the same time, what Micah is missing is that it's just extremely unprofessional. And we can't tell, it's wrong to even try and tell Weber and Dembaba that how they should feel about an issue, or how they should react or that they shouldn't feel away or they shouldn't feel offended. Anybody saying that, that rhetoric in and of itself is extremely offensive and kind of racist in and of itself, to be telling a black man that they should not be offended or not feel offended or how they should feel about something. Especially from the context of if that is coming from a Caucasian individual, that in and of itself is just, could potentially be deemed racist as well. So again, that argument is just a ridiculous one that I don't subscribe to. Whether or not you think Webber and Barr are easily offended, the fact of the matter is they were offended, and a number of people on social media are saying that they personally would have been offended. And again, take racism out of the picture. The fact of the matter is it was at the very least unprofessional. So, and what's interesting is that even the Romanian Anti-Discrimination Council said that it was racism without any possibility of interpretation. Again, they're saying the same thing that I am saying. Why couldn't the fourth official identify Webber by there are so many other details to identify him by? Why the color of his skin? So that's something that that's very interesting to note, that in Romania, apparently, to knock down that or to contrast or to juxtapose that whole argument about the word is not deemed or the phrase is not deemed offensive in Romania, the Romanian Anti-Discrimination Council deemed it racism without any possibility of interpretation. And this is a council that would obviously deal with situations not only dealing with black individuals but also the group referred to as gypsies, which are the people of Romania. The entire population of Romania are referred to sometimes as are identified or identify themselves as or identify with the group known as, or the ethnicity rather, known as gypsies. And there's a whole nother backstory to that we'll get into a little later, because officials from the Istanbul team are also being accused of being racist as well with regard to that rather, calling the fourth official a gypsy. As it pertains to even, John Barnes, another naysayer, another what we as black people deem a token Negro. John Barnes has insisted that he has no problem with the words used by the fourth official. And that's his opinion, and he's entitled to it for sure. He's entitled to his opinion. But while I understand what he is saying, I kind of do disagree, especially with how he put it. John Barnes said in a statement on Twitter, if you don't know their names and 6 or 7 of them are standing together in a group and you are 15 feet away and trying to tell someone which one it is, and it's the only black one of the group, how do you describe him? Give me another way to identify him, please. You've got 10 seconds, as the fourth official did. Ready, go. Okay, fair statement, but this is the part that I really and truly disagree with. I don't agree with this. He continues, call us black when we want. Don't call us black when we want. No wonder some white people are laughing at us and not taking us seriously when they have us like puppets on a string. Now, first of all, I am nobody's puppet on a string, right? And for John Barnes to make a statement like that is really and truly very offensive. You know, especially a man of his standing, a man of his profile, you know, a very high profile individual, very well known and well respected individual. For him as a black man to get up and say something like that is just in and of itself. You know, you know, coming from such from an individual such a massive platform. I don't like that statement. I mean, and look, I get what he is saying. I think what he is saying is that basically we cry wolf, or in this case, we are crying wolf, right? And that we need to be consistent and accurate when labeling someone or something or an incident to be racist. Fair point, but to put it like this, you know, you know, the whole puppets on a string thing and laughing at us and stuff like that. You know, I don't agree with that. Somebody wrote under his post, you know, someone wrote under his post it was unprofessional and unfortunate, but I don't think it was racist. And I can see why somebody may hold that view for sure. But again, it's the way how John Barnes said it, you know, with the whole puppet and a string argument, you know, I don't agree with. So, but, and, you know, to be fair to John Barnes, sometimes I do also think that we do cry wolf. I do believe that sometimes as well that we do sometimes cry wolf, and it doesn't help our case when we do it, right? But what John Barnes also needs to remember and respect is that, again, as I stated earlier, black people are not a monolith. Some agreed that it was racist, some thought that it wasn't. And that needs to be respected. The varying views and opinions in our community amongst black people, whether you agree or disagree with them, all views need to be respected. And it's also a fair point, as I stated earlier, that you can't speak to one's subjective intentions, so I don't know if he was indeed being a racist. But what I can tell you is that sometimes just the very appearance of racism is enough to rightfully cause hysteria and rightfully, you know, cause people to be upset and cause, you know, cause hysteria and cause people to be infuriated, right? I mean, just the very appearance of it, just something said or done that, even though you can't speak to one subjective intentions and what they were actually trying to do or convey, just the very appearance of racism is enough to rightfully spark outrage. You know, and as stated earlier, you know, it was definitely unprofessional, and John Barnes did not address that. At the very least, even if you don't agree with whether or not the statement was racist, at the very least, it was very, very unprofessional. And the statement could also be deemed racial profiling, right? The statement could also be deemed racially, that the fourth official was racially profiling Mr. Weber. The mere fact that he paired his blackness with something negative or negative behavior in and of itself could be deemed racially or racial profiling or subconscious bias, basically pairing his blackness with negative behavior and saying it's not possible to act like that. The black one over there, it's not possible to act like that. More than likely, he didn't even realize it, but there's as I said, as I keep saying, I can't speak to subjective intentions, but is that a coincidence that he paired his blackness with negative behavior? Who knows? And it being the reason why he identified someone who he deemed to be behaving negatively by the color of their skin. This is a possibility. Not saying it happened, but it is a possibility and an option that must be looked at. So, as I say, John Barnes is entitled to his opinion, and I do understand what he's saying, but at the very least, this statement is just a statement that has the potential to open a can of worms. It's grossly unprofessional, and even Jose Mourinho characterized it as an unacceptable mistake. Extremely unprofessional, and John Barnes doesn't seem to be calling that out. So while I do get his point and I do agree with him to a certain extent, one, I don't agree with how it was conveyed, and two, at least call out the fact that it is very, very, very unprofessional to have made a statement like that in a professional environment. With that being said, that was us analyzing the whole. That was me analyzing the statement made by the fourth official. I'm just looking at it from multiple sides, multiple perspectives. But in new allegations that are now emerging, right, a new twist to the plot, it is being alleged, and not even alleged because you hear it clearly. You hear it clearly. Right? You hear it clearly on the mic, where an individual from the Istanbul bench said to the fourth official, "In my country, Romanians are gypsies." Right? And this is apparently before the incident of the referee identifying Pierre Webber as the black one. Right? And in the video, you can see where the fourth official, Sebastian Coltescu, turned and looked at the bench. I think he heard when the individual from the Istanbul bench said, "In my country, Romanians are gypsies." Right? I definitely, judging by his reaction, even though it was said in passing kinda, and it was said behind him and he was engaging with, if I'm not mistaken, Neymar, he turned and he looked in that direction. So I think he heard that, right? And I am wondering if, one, we're going to get into how highly offensive that term is, but I'm also wondering if it was a case where he was just a victim. The fourth official, Sebastian Coltescu, was just a victim of the Istanbul bench bringing race and nationality into the equation, because one, the Istanbul bench was accused on a number of occasions, not by Sebastian Coltescu, but they were accused on a number of occasions of referring to the referees' nationalities and referring to the fourth official as a gypsy. Right? And I'm wondering if that was just, that entered his mind, the whole context of race and nationality entered his mind because of the alleged abuse that he was suffering on the bench. Now, it's not clear who made the statement. Initial reports that it was Pierre Webber. Those have been shut down and denied. Apparently, it seemed, while the individual has not been identified, it does not appear to have come from Pierre Weber. Right? But again, another very unfortunate statement. And to be fair, I'm going to be honest. In researching this video, because when I initially heard the allegation, and obviously it being portrayed as a serious allegation, I immediately started to do my due diligence and started to dig, because, to be honest with you, I did not realize that the word gypsy was a racial slur. I did not know that. That was news to me, right? And I don't know how common that is, and judging by some of the articles that I read on it, the individuals who posited these writings on the particular issue of the word gypsy being a racial slur seem to indicate that it is not well known, right? So who knows? Probably Pierre Weber did not want here, because it was said in passing and it was said in a very heated moment, and two, did not know of the implications or the meaning or the potential meaning. Certainly the individual who said it knew, because it was said, in my country, Romanians are gypsies. It was said, obviously, to infer hurt, to offend. But in my research, apparently the word gypsy, or the G word, is not a word that should be played with. It's a racial slur, a connotation implying illegality and irregularity. Some have even compared it to the N-word for black people, But in all fairness, judging by solely based on my readings of individuals speaking on the respective issue, some people seem to mind being called gypsies, or the G word rather. I shouldn't say gypsy, my apologies. I shouldn't say the G word, the G word. And some people actually don't mind being called the G word. Some people, from my readings and from what these individuals are saying, who are individuals in Romania, are saying that some people actually embrace being called the G word, right? But it is a word that, if you can, you must avoid using, or give it a negative or warning label, right? It can also infer vagabond, a free-spirited lifestyle. So apparently this is a word that has an offensive connotation, and is used to hurt, and is used to offend, and is basically a racial slur. Honestly, this was news to me, and I don't know how popular or how well known this fact is, right? And the people of Romania, who are generally referred to by the G word, or are identified. These are the individuals. These are the people of Romania, the ethnic group that this word has been ascribed to over the years, the G word. And these people I did some due diligence, did some research. These people have faced their fair share of persecution. They have faced their fair share of discrimination. In the Holocaust, it is believed that about 7 to 80% of the Romani population was murdered. Wow, I did not know that. Right? I mean, that's news to me. And even the individual who posited that bit of information in an essay that was written stated that this is a little known or little recognized fact, but apparently it is one that the people of Romani, that is an established fact in Romania, that about 70 to 80% of their population was murdered during the Holocaust. Sad. Romani, the people of Romani also experienced chattel slavery for over 500 years, officially ending in 1860. Man, I thought the only people going through slavery rather, at that point in time were black people. I mean, I know all over the world you had pockets of slaves and stuff like that, but on a particular ethnic group on a wide scale level being slaves. News to me. I did not know that. Again, a recognized fact in Romania. And these people are still victims of hate crimes and institutional and systematic oppression even today. So this is a word that has a negative connotation and negative stereotypes. I encourage individuals to go and do some research on this and educate and inform yourself. I don't really want to, it's not my place to really educate you guys on this, just making you guys aware of this, right? But I encourage you guys to go get yourselves educated on this topic of, the G word, the G word, and the negative connotations and the issues of oppression and racism that the people of Romani have faced over the centuries. They have faced centuries of oppression. It's a recognized fact in Romania. So, obviously, the word was intended to cause hurt and to cause, and basically intended as a racial slur by the individual who used it, and shamed on the individual who used it. Shame on the individual who used it. My thing though is Sebastian Coltescu has not spoken about this issue in terms of from the perspective of the word gypsy being used to him and how regular it was used while officiating the match. But he did speak on the issue and he stated, "I just tried to be good. I'm not going to read any news sites these next few days. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not racist. At least that's what I hope." So all around, this is just not a good look for all involved. Sebastian Coltescu himself was made a mistake and was unprofessional, and shame on the individual, the unidentified individual on the Istanbul bench who referred to Mr. Coltescu as the G word. Clearly he was using it to cause hurt and using it as a racial slur. This isn't a good look by all parties involved. A shame that it had to come to this. Istanbul were already knocked out. Paris Saint-Germain winning that match would have gone through, and the next day the match was played and they won it 5-1 and qualified to the second round, so congratulations to them. But I hear people saying, or people talking about racism in football and when it's gonna stop and so forth and so forth. Racism in football isn't going anywhere anytime soon, because the fact of the matter is that racism in the world isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There have been a number of incidents in football over the years involving high-profile players like Raheem Sterling, like Dani Alves, Mario Balotelli, Kevin Prince Boateng, and a number of other high-profile black players. And it's an issue that football is grappling with and trying to find a way to deal with it. As I said earlier, I really do commend the players on both sides, because even though the whole thing is unfortunate, both from Istanbul's perspective and the referee's perspective, one good thing definitely came out of this, and is that a code of conduct has been established for how players deal with racism going forward. And basically this, I believe, is a very good response. A response that, because most times alleged racism in football is alleged to come from fans. And this response would definitely make fans think twice about saying or doing racist things or racist chants or whatever the case may be. Syria are in particular in Italy struggles with racism, both the frequency of the incidents and their handling of the incidents. I think the Italian Federation needs to do a far better job of dealing with racism in Syria A. The whole running and ducking for cover strategy that they have been using is just not a good look. And more, the Italian Federation has been called out for its handling, or the lack thereof, of racism. I remember even with the Balotelli incident, Verona banned a fan until 2030 for some statements that the super fan made. It was a super fan made some statements about Balotelli, very unfortunate statements, and they banned the fan until 2030. Roma was the first club ever to ban a fan for life, right? The first club in Italy ever to ban a fan for life, and that didn't even come from the federation. They just took that upon themselves. But Italy, this whole running and ducking for cover thing, any and every time racism rears its ugly head in Italy, they need to come up with a new strategy, and they need to come up with a new strategy fast. The English Premier League does a phenomenal job. I must compliment the English FA. They do a wonderful job in tackling racism and racist incidents head on. They ban the fans for life. They take it very seriously in England, which is more than I can say for a number of the other leagues around Europe, in particular Italy. But allegedly. But they take it very, very, very seriously. The issue of racism in England. And you have seen, because of this response, because of the messaging, because of the hashtags, because of the Black Lives Matter and the shirts and the kneeling and the severe consequences for racism, the incidents have slowed down. There have not been as many incidents of this sort of egregious behavior. Clubs and the English FA alike have taken the whole issue of racism in England extremely seriously, and I must commend them for that. They are the leaders for sure, and it's not a coincidence that the English Premier League is the best league in the world. It's a well-run league. They know what they're doing. They know what they're about. They continue to be the catalyst for change. They continue to lead in all aspects of the game. The English Premier League and the English FA. It's not a coincidence that the Premier League is the best league in the world and the most competitive league and the richest league in the world and the most watched. All of that is not a coincidence. The fact of the matter is the league is very well run. And Serie A, on the other hand, is a league that I'm concerned about. Serie A isn't heading in the right direction. It isn't. right? I mean, just looking at even the infrastructure of some of the stadiums, the club's respective stadiums. I mean, sometimes when you look at the stadiums look like they're falling apart. I know both Milan clubs have a serious issue right now with the San Siro. Also, a number of the clubs in Italy aren't doing so well financially. A lot of them are really, really struggling financially. They're in a bad financial state. So all of these little things add up. It's responses to an issue like racism that shows you exactly why the English Premier League is the best league in the world and why right now the Italian Serie A is going in the other direction. You know, is certainly slipping in the rankings to leagues like La Liga and the German Bundesliga. You know, of course, Ligue 1 has a while to catch up. They are just far behind, but even they themselves are catching up. And Italy, don't be surprised if 15, 20 years from now, Italy is the fifth best league in the world, and Italy is in a place, the Italian Serie A is in a place where Ligue 1 was coming from the last, 10, 15 years or so. So Italy, the Italian Federation definitely needs to pull up their socks and implement more progressive leadership in their handling of all matters pertaining to football, including issues on race and racism. Turkey also is another league or is another country that has serious issues with racism in football. I want to go a bit more in depth on the incident, the aforementioned incident involving Raheem Sterling, and how it was a massive game changing moment with regard to racism in football. Raheem was addressing an incident that took place at a Chelsea game where someone in the stands called him a effing black cunt. And in response to the incident, Raheem posted a picture of two young Manchester City, similar aged Manchester City players who bought homes for their moms in a similar price bracket. One was £2 million, the other one was £2.2 million, £2.25 million to be exact. One being black and the other being white, both being on similar wages from Manchester City. Raheem basically pointed out the hypocrisy regarding the headlines for both stories done by the same media outlet. And you guys can go on his Instagram to see the difference in coverage of both stories by the same media outlet, the Daily Mail to be exact, to be specific. He basically accused sections of the British media of racially stereotypical coverage of black and white athletes, helping to fuel the sort of racist and aggressive behavior he witnessed at Chelsea. And there has been academic research dating back to the 70s that support this view. Authors Paul Hartman and Charles Husband did research on this very same issue and published a book called Racism and Mass Media, which backed up this very claim, or supported rather this very claim made by Raheem Sterling. A particular pair of headlines that really stood out to me personally was the difference in which the Sun covered Harry Kane's proposal to his girlfriend versus Raheem's proposal to his girlfriend. The headline involving the former said, and I quote, "She said yes. Harry Kane gets engaged to long-term girlfriend and mother of his child, Kate Goodland. Now, the headline involving the latter stated, Footy love rat. I'm sorry, this is funny. Footy love rat Raheem Sterling proposed to his long-suffering partner. The £200,000 a week England and Manchester City ace gave ex-shop worker Paige Million a huge diamond ring. Again, same media outlet, different tone, and both proposals happened months apart from each other. Only difference being, or the main difference being, one player was white and one being black. There's also a very interesting article on the Undefeated website written by Martenzie Johnson, which I really encourage you guys to read if you guys are interested in a deeper dive on this particular issue, which references multiple studies that portray black athletes as self-centered, selfish, arrogant, and greedy. These characteristics sound very similar to portrayals made of Raheem Sterling himself over the years. But this article included a reference to a Twitter thread posted by a Twitter user, basically documenting the racist and racially coded media coverage of Sterling from a number of British publications, including when he was dubbed greedy by the Daily Telegraph for asking for a pay rise after winning the prestigious Golden Boy Award. So this and many other instances can be alluded to, with just Sterling in particular. We have not even begun to discuss the many other instances involving the many other players. But again, if you guys are interested in this Sterling case study, you guys can go read the article by Martenzie Johnson, and I encourage you to. It's a good read. But Sterling's IG post calling out these media houses is just a very brave and courageous act, man. For me personally, I think it's really brave, considering the power the media possesses. Even in regard to shaping Sterling's own narrative and successfully painting whatever picture they feel like painting him. You know, they have the power to do this. But the fact that he stood up, or he stood his ground rather, and spoke truth to power is very commendable, and it's a major incident in the world of football, because it really highlighted a massive issue. And this is something that I was speaking about long before Sterling even made reference to it, because it's something that I had picked up on and realized a long time ago. In my humble estimation, the media, especially the British media, covers black and Caucasian athletes very differently. I've always said that the tone, the words, the imagery, the storyline, it's always just been vastly different, in my opinion. And to see Sterling really, you know, a very high profile player like Raheem Sterling get up and say, hey, this is an issue, and the attention that it received worldwide, because obviously Sterling is a global superstar. It was a big deal in football, a big deal in football. So I really respected Sterling getting up. And other black players like Ashley Cole even commended Sterling and saying it's something that he had even realized but from a long time ago, but there's no way he could have the courage to do something like that. So just to kind of put it out there to make the world aware that this is an issue, and for the world to be watching. Now media houses are forced to be more fair and more objective in their coverage of players, black and white, and also to remove any and to be very, because even if you don't realize it or even if they didn't realize it, there could be potentially subconscious biases or subconscious things that they would have thought about black players that they didn't even, or black people in general, that they didn't even realize. So for Sterling to put it out there even puts them on the spot, or the respective media houses on the spot, to be more mindful and be more careful of how they cover athletes, black and white, and the difference in this particular coverage of these athletes. But, ladies and gentlemen, this issue of racism in football isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You know, this isn't even an opinion. You know, this is a theory. The theory of white supremacy. You know, it's an ideology that will always exist. You know, it will always be around. It's an ideal for some individuals, for Caucasian individuals, you know, who would ideally love to see the world in this way, or being this way, or looking this sort of a way. You know, and humans are like that. Humans are always, our human nature is to be selfish and greedy. Human nature is self-interest and greed. And so, because of this ideology isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and it transcends generations. You know, just racism will transcend generations. Just things said and done, thoughts, views, subconscious beliefs, you know. All of it's learned behavior, and you know, you have parents who think this way. Children in the house will be socialized in a certain way, and this will just continue for this will just continue for generations and generations to come. We can, you know, advocate for this behavior to be taboo. We can demonize it, and so forth and so forth. But at the end of the day, racism will always be around. It will always be around in the world. And football is a microcosm of the world, so it will always be around in football. You know, but these are my thoughts on this particular issue. Again, a very unfortunate issue. You know, unprofessional behavior from both sides, from both the fourth official and, you know, the Istanbul bench. Very unfortunate behavior, and let this be a learning lesson for football, that we don't have any more incidents of this nature taking place in the future. All right, guys, take care, and until next time.